Is this current feud with Fresh and Fit, is this like the biggest YouTuber on YouTuber drama that you've been involved with so far? This is kind of honestly, new ground for you?
Honestly, so weird. It's so weird. Like from the first video to the response, I was like, there was such a disconnect. I was just confused.
Right, because, okay, so you went on their show and then months later you ended up making a video about some of the stuff that was said about a certain percentage of what was discussed.
Okay, so I want to just cover that real quick. I think that caused confusion. We covered a bunch of stuff that we said on those podcasts.
Right.
Most of them were very positive. We did like 4 videos where we covered little clips of the podcast. So we did 2 podcasts. We did one during the day, me, Preach, and those 2 guys. And then we did a second one with the bimbos and then us 3, okay? I didn't remember the first podcast. Both happened the same day because the second one was like so fucking weird. Right?
Being around those girls.
Yeah, and just the whole dynamic of the podcast, it was just so, I just left right afterwards. I was like, nah, I'm pissed. Because it was just so strange. And then I ended up covering clips of that. So I'd post one every 2-3 weeks. And then somebody sent me the first podcast and they're like, yo, you got to check this out. Do you remember this? And I rewatched it. I'm like, yo, I'm clipping this. So there's actually 4 other parts of that podcast that we're going to cover. Some positive, some negative. We did the first one that happened to be negative from that podcast. And like, where did this come from? It's like, bro, we just covered this video the way we cover everything else. It's not that deep. So I think that's the context that people are missing. But yeah.
Do you feel like the video you made was like perhaps a little too aggressive towards them, considering that you had like been on their show and they had welcomed you into that and everything? Like, is you know, like if you were to make a video about this podcast and there was like a certain chunk of what we said that you then were like, you know, maybe a little aggressive towards me, I could see myself feeling away. But did you feel like you crossed that line?
So here's the thing. We were confrontational on those points during the podcast.
Okay.
I was confrontational to him about some stuff he said on it. So it's not like I came with a weird energy. You know what I'm saying? Even on the podcast, they were talking about, oh, Abba came with the smoke. Because I said, like, yo, why would you say that? And he answered, and it's cool. We moved on. Watching in hindsight, I just had new things. I could understand how they may have felt some type of way. But at the end of the day, did we hit below the belt? Did we say anything that was not on the topic, right? Did we not just attack the ideas more than anything? And I think maybe the tone might have set some people the wrong way. Sure. And if you want to get on that, I'm not mad at anyone. I could definitely understand how the tone, but it's also the tone that we keep with all of our videos. So it's a bit of consistency. But can I understand why they felt that type of way? Sure. But then the response was just crazy.
Right.
That's what I didn't understand.
Because they made it really personal and they made it really about clout and stuff, right?
You saw the response. Did it have anything to do with the original video?
I feel like I know where they're coming from, because as a creator, sometimes this can be your instinct, is like, I'm going to just come in here and start firing and just explain how I'm better than you. The audience is very, very rarely persuaded by that. The audience, at the end of the day, would rather hear you confront the ideas that are being discussed and not make it a pissing contest.
Bruv, if I come at you and I critique you for some of your stuff, all right, your ideas, how you feel about no jumper, how to raise a family, right? Critiquing those. And then you come at me upset and you be like, your mom left you when you were a child. What the fuck does that have to do with the conversation we're having at the end? Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
That's the end of polite conversation right there.
Right, that's crazy talk. Like, why would you bring up something like, you know, like you just wouldn't have that. And that's just the same idea. You know, if somebody doesn't come at me below the belt, I'm not even going to think about going there with people.
Right.
You know, whether it's friends, family, doesn't matter what it is. So for me, it was just confusion with the response. I'm like, where does this come from? And I think it just reflects in people how they deal with adversity, how they deal with a little bit of conflict. You know, like if somebody comes in and says something to you, how you deal with that is a reflection of who you are, because you're not comfortable. So you can't put on a facade. You can't try to button things up. You're feeling some type of way. Your real emotions are coming out in that moment. So the way I interpret that is like, okay, there's some imbalances there. There's some things you need to sort out on your own.
Yeah, because I mean, just making it about the clout and stuff instead of just having a real conversation is just, that's just not, the audience is not going to relate to it. And as men, we should be better than that, I think.
It has nothing. Listen, man, you know this. It's like you see people with large followings, people with small followings. It's not a reflection of their character. It's never a reflection of their character. So to bring that up in a conversation with grown men is like, what are you talking about? You're really going to talk, oh, the only reason you're talking is because you have 2 million followers. How old are you?
Right.
That's like something like here on TikTok. You know what I'm saying? Like, how is a grown man, you're boasting numbers about followers in a conversation about ideas? That's crazy to me. You imagine Jordan Peterson having a conversation with journalists and be like, do you know how many Twitter followers? That sounds stupid.
Yeah.
Right? So
he loses the argument right there as soon as he starts to make it about that.
And they would all lose respect for him because they're like, bro, nobody. Do you think that makes you a better person because you have numbers?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's the stuff that I don't understand. So for me, it was just like it was clearly a lapse in judgment on their part. But it's like, where did that come from? More than anything, this is what I think about people. If you act a certain way under duress, under stress, where's that crazy response of yours coming from? And then you have to do some inner dialogue. Because I don't care how many times I put you in certain scenarios, there's no way you're going to come out with specific responses. Meaning, if I come to you in the street and I say, hey, Adam, you're stupid, you're not going to just start losing your mind and throwing off your pants in the street and doing all that. Because there's something there if you were to have that response, right? You would agree. You got some mental imbalance. If someone insults you and you start shitting in your hand, someone's like, is this man imbalanced? That's how I think a lot of people need to think about themselves when they react negatively to confrontation or anything like that.
To be fair, I think that they realized that they handled it poorly because they deleted the videos and kind of offered a little bit of an apology.
I don't think that's realizing. I think there's a balance.
I think their fans and the fan reaction probably helped them to realize.
Here's what I'm gonna say. I don't know what goes on in people's minds. I don't know what's going on in people's hearts. So if someone says something, I'm like, cool, I can't know for sure, whatever. But I would say, it's highly just as possible that they saw how bad it was for business and decided to change that up. And again, now we're still not talking about values and character. We're still talking about business. YouTube is not just business. People come on there for real personalities and authenticity. So when you come crooked, people see that and they start to, that's the genesis of this website. This whole platform is all about authentic characters who are making no money but just wanted to do cool stuff. So when you come on this phony business all the time, it's like, and especially when you talk about character and building game, which is something that's innate, that's about your personality. How are you going to teach that to somebody when you're only about numbers? You know what I'm saying? And so I think a lot of people felt like, first off, the first apology was stupid. I apologize to my fans.
Right.
Like, you say someone disrespectful to someone's wife and them, and you apologize to your fans. So already in hindsight, that was the first way they came about it. It's kind of like the baby. I don't think he's really sorry about what he said. Oh, no. He's sorry that, he's losing money maybe. And I think those two things are very different. And I think audiences can tell when those two things are different. So, for me, I don't really care that deeply. I'm not going to get involved with them anymore. I don't really want to. But as far as my perception of them, is like, you were trying to be a leader and you really didn't have what it takes. That's what it really comes down to.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I feel like they're really new at this, and that I could kind of imagine of myself have gotten into a similar situation in the sense of being disrespectful very early on. So I hope that they kind of like learn from the experience, because I think that like even their fans seem to be pretty much 100% on the same page of like, that's not how you go about an argument with somebody that you already ostensibly have a relationship with. Because you guys could totally still be cool after that video that you guys made, and it could have still been really good for content if you guys had just gone back and forth and talked about it, and it didn't have to be this sort of life or death thing,
I can't be cool with people who don't have integrity. That's me personally. I won't go after you, but if you're someone who I think is a reprehensible person, I'm not trying to have business relationships with you. Why would I? Fuck, well, what am I going to spend my day socializing with somebody who's like a rapist? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and this is some real shit. Like, if you go around stealing from people all the time, I'm going to look at you crooked. Like, why would I want you in my circle to someone to conversate with? Why would I put my name beside yours for my fans to be like, because if my fans see me beside you, I think you have moral character. And if I don't, that means I'm recommending you to people when I think you're trash. So my whole thing is, I'm not going to go out of my way to fight folks for that. You can be that way, but I'm not going to associate with you. My only problem, and this is my big one, is when you try to lead other people. But I know it's like, someone's a scam artist and they're stealing from young men. Would you just think it's fine to hang out with those people?
No.
And that's it. I'm a principled person. I'm not going to look for conflict with people who are doing illegal stuff. It's not my business. But when you want to take up a leadership position, when you want to shape young men, it's time to just say, you're not really about it.
But you didn't feel so negatively about them until they started responding to that video. You weren't so upset about just what happened on the podcast in their studio?
No. So after I went on the podcast the first time, a lot of time had passed, and people kept sending me stuff in emails, and I never really covered it, right? I started seeing stuff on a regular basis about this is what this person's doing behind. They were having the receipts for it, and I was like, oh, is that how you move? And I was like, okay. I didn't really think much of it. I'm like, I'm not going to get into it. And when that clip came about and we reacted to it, we didn't cover that stuff, all the little receipts, because I'm like, you know what? It's not my place to expose folks. Like, if you're doing that shit, fine. But one thing I thought was distasteful was like when you get up on a platform and you say, young men, this is why you shouldn't do this. This is why you should never, and you're doing it behind closed doors like a Derek Jackson, it starts to rub me the wrong way. That's why we covered Derek Jackson. We did the exact same thing. Derek Jackson was talking crazy online about how to be a faithful man, all this other stuff. And I always knew he was a phony. The energy was always off. Come find the receipts and all his mistresses are exposed. I spoke to them personally. They called me. And I was like, whoa, that's why I had to cover it. That's the hypocrisy of people wanting to be leaders and then not practicing what they preach. That needs to be exposed. So that's the main thing.
No, I feel that for sure. Yeah, this has all been a pretty wild thing to watch play out. But I mean, the wife thing, that really took it to another level, huh?
Yeah, and you know what? Preach is gonna handle that himself. So I say that's between them. I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine talking like, just, yo, listen, you on a podcast, you have a disagreement with someone about ideas. Let's say it's about tricking, right? And people want to pay for bucks, and then someone mentions your kid.
Yeah.
Are you fucking insane? I just couldn't imagine doing that, and people take that stuff lightly. I'm like, online, there's always a bit of distance. We want to keep our loved ones away from it because it's not easy to manage.
Right.
You know this, right? Like the influence that everyone on Twitter and stuff has on your personal life, it's a lot. And so to have that also trickle down to your family, that's why I'm super protective of my family. Right. I don't post them online. They're not on any of my social medias. Nobody ever gonna find no pictures of us unless I'm ready to do that. But even then, I really think about putting anybody's face online.
Right.
And so when you bring up their names and you just start that kind of thing, I'm like, what are you doing? So it's just, I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of it, and I think everybody knows it's not a right thing to do. So I don't overthink it.
I mean, in a way, though, I'm like, in the pickup artist space in general, like one of the things that I've seen from just sort of like observing people's channels and stuff is a lot of times it feels like a lot of the guys involved in this space are kind of like just showing off for each other.
Do you know the emotion you're showing on your face right now?
What?
Is disgust.
When I see these, not them, but like other people, when I've seen people just bragging about what their lay count is and shit, I'm like, bro, this is weird to me because if you were a guy who was really concerned with like maximizing how much ass you're getting, you wouldn't be out here making YouTube videos like saying I fucked 1,500 girls. And even if that's true, like that's cool. Maybe you could somehow still manage getting girls and also bragging about this absurd amount of girls you slept with. But it just really kind of comes off as like showing off for the dudes and not really actually being good at that. And also I feel like at some point it needs to be acknowledged that it's probably not the best thing for you as a human being to be trying to have sex with women on this like industrial scale where you're like just fucking every fucking girl on earth. Like this is not good for your soul.